Hi dear students, today I am going to explain you how to plot the graph of this function y equals minus sine of 1/3 of x, okay? As you remember, the form of the trigonometric functions is this one, the blue one. Y equals a sine times bx of plus c plus d, where a is the amplitude, b is going to tell us how y is going to be our graph, c is going to tell us where the graph is going to move to the left or to the right, and d if the graph is going to move up or down, okay? Now, let's start getting all the information that we need in order to plot the graph. First, we are going to get the steps until step number 5. So we could have amplitude, period, the size of the quadrant, the beginning of the graph, of the period, the ending of the period or cycle, and then we plot the graph, and after plotting the graph, we get the maximum, the minimum, domain, and range. Okay. The amplitude, dear students, is the absolute value of a, and remember our a is minus sine, so here we have a negative 1. So the absolute value of negative 1 is 1. So we know that the amplitude is from the x-axis to the minimum or to the maximum point. Is the distance, is a measure, okay? So, period, with this little formula, 2 pi over b. We have 2 pi divided by b, which is 1/3, and we get 6 pi. This is telling us, remember, how wide the graph is going to be. Remember that yesterday we were plotting some graphs where the period was always 2 pi and 2 pi. So I wanted to show you this example because we are going to get something different and you're going to learn something different, okay? Well, as you can see, from 0 to 6 pi is going to be the width of our graph. And then quadrant. Quadrant is the size of the quadrant. We're going to get it with this formula. Remember, period divided by 4. Why by 4? Because we have 4 quadrants in the unit circle, remember. So we divide 6 pi, which is the period, divided by 4, and we get 3 pi halves. Oh, okay. This is important, dear students, because this is the space that we're going to have between one point and the next one. I mean, from here to here, we are going to have 3 pi halves. As you can see, 1 pi half, 2 pi halves, 3 pi halves. And then you continue from this point to the next one, 1, 2, 3 pi halves. And then from this one to the next one, the same thing, and so on. Okay? Then continue. The beginning of the period or the cycle. We take whatever we have here inside the parentheses, but remember, we don't have c, so we have 1/3 x equals to 0 because we don't have any c. When we solve for x, we get x equals 0. So this is telling us that the beginning of our graph is going to be in 0 pi, in the x-axis in 0, okay? And then we go to the ending. This is going to help us to calculate where the graph is going to end, or the cycle of the graph. And we have the same parentheses, but remember we don't have the c, so 1/3 x equals to 2 pi. Remember that always in the beginning you equalize to 0, and in the ending you equalize to 2 pi, okay? And then we are going to write 1/3 x equals to pi. So when we solve for x, we get x equals to 6 pi. And yes, look, we are ending in 6 pi. And then with these 5 points, we are going to be able to plot our graph. Now pay attention here in the graph. How are we going to get the values for the x-axis? This one is going to help us. The size of the quadrant, dear students, because here this is telling us which is the space, as I was telling you, that you're going to have between one point and the next one, and then you continue. So if I have 3 pi halves, I have to write the values in x value in halves. So I'm going to write 1 pi halves, and then 2 pi halves, and I continue 3 pi halves, 4 pi halves, 5 pi halves, and then when you simplify the fractions, you get, in this one you get 1 pi, and in this other one 2 pi, 3 pi, 4 pi, 5 pi, and 6 pi. This is the ending of your cycle, remember. Okay, so you start plotting your points so you can plot the waves. But let me tell you something very important. Look, yesterday we were plotting the graph of positive sign, and now we are plotting the graph for negative sign. So look, as this is negative, we are going to plot the reflection of the positive graph. Here in green color we have the positive sign graph, which is from here to here. And as you can see, this is the form that we have to follow. When sign, the coefficient of sign is positive, I mean A. And we have our 5 points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we used to have them here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But as now we have negative 1 as the coefficient of sign, which is the A, now we are going to have this form, which is the reflection of the positive 1. As you can see, we have the 5 important points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, you have to be careful, and you have to watch if you have positive or negative A. It depends. Also, it is going to work for cosine or sine. Later on, you are going to solve an equation with cosine, and I'm going to give you also an example so you can see how you're going to do it. But look, here we are going to start in 0 pi, and then we are going to count 1, 2, 3, and you go down as because this is the reflection of this point. And then we are going to count again 1, 2, 3 halves, and then we are going to plot the next point, and then again 1, 2, 3 halves, and the next point, and then 1, 2, 3 halves, and then the last point. Okay? Just don't get confused. If it is negative, this point that used to be for the positive sign, now it's going to be reflected here, and here the same thing. This one, which was the point in the positive sign, is going to be reflected in this other point. Okay, dear students? And then we have to get the maximum, the minimum, domain, and range. The maximum of this graph is this one, so we are going to write 9 pi halves, comma, 1, positive 1. And the minimum is this one, so we are going to write 3 pi halves, comma, minus 1. The domain, as I was telling you yesterday, is from the negative infinity to the positive infinity, because the waves continue both sides to the infinities. And then the range from the bottom to the top. So it starts here in minus 1 in y, and it ends here in 1 in the y-axis. Okay? Good, dear students. Thanks for your kind attention. Take care. Stay at home and have a nice day. Bye.